TCAI login. TCAI login process begins inside of an Inventor session. Inside of the TCAI ribbon menu is shown here by clicking the login button. The TCAI login screen appears with required entries of username and password, obviously, and then optional of group and role. And then it's highlighted here the TCAI server, or rather the Teamcenter server, is available for selection by the user. The user can also automate this process by simply checking the dialog box, "Don't show this again," or setting in a preference to where now the login process will be automated as soon as the user logs into Teamcenter. Main menu overview. Once the user is logged into TCAI, the full functionality of the TCAI ribbon is available. This is also available obviously in the classic menu, but for here we'll be showing the ribbon. Main sections are login, log out, navigate, save, check-in, check-out, synchronize, local cache operations, and finally the More tab primarily for preferences in the help file. If we examine a little closer first to login, log out, and navigate, the login and log out shows us the status of our login state with respect to Teamcenter, and the navigate section will bring up the home browser, which is the primary interface for most users and is covered in detail later in sections. Next to the right, moving on here, we have the save area, which gives us all of the primary save initial, save as revision, save as a new item, and also the save silent, which offers a very quick save without any dialog box, and cloning can be done from this menu as well. Next to the right, we have check-in, check-out, and synchronize. Check-in and check-out allows me to, from inside of this Inventor session, to check in or check out data that for instance, if I may have created it from scratch, or to pull active data from inside that's stored inside of Teamcenter, but I don't want to go inside of a Teamcenter rack or other application client, but I want to pull it directly from here. Synchronize finally allows me to update manually any attribute changes I may have done inside of Inventor. However, this synchronization is usually done automatically upon check-in, check-out, open, or save. Final two sections are local cache and the More tab. Local cache allows me to clean up the connection folder and refresh it in case, for instance, a design has changed. And the More tab primarily allows me to view and edit user preferences. TCAI Home Browser Introduction. The home browser is a primary interface that most users will deploy for the vast majority of their day-to-day activities inside of TCAI and Inventor. It's invoked simply by hitting the home button in the navigate pane, and it immediately brings up a textual interface as well of folders inside of my Teamcenter instance. What I'm doing here now is navigating down to individual data sets, in this case Inventor parts, and a graphical representation and textual information is available to me. The properties that are available on the part, the metadata, as well as its checkout state indicated by the green arrow indicates it's checked out to me. This part I'm browsing on now has no such green check mark, so that indicates that part, while in my folder, is not checked out to me or anyone else. Additional graphical representations available here as I cycle through the parts and item IDs. In the lower portion of my screen, a quick thumbnail is shown to me as well as key metadata about that part. And I can cycle again through any part looking at this data, graphically understanding if it's valuable to me. And then finally in the home browser is a very sophisticated search capability. In this case I'm doing a very quick search, just asking for all item IDs that end in 005 or have 005 in them somewhere actually. And I can again manually browse through these parts and see if any of them are of interest to me to open or check out later. Finally, graphical representations. The red folder there on Jim's design indicates that is not accessible to me, and the bold import indicates that it is the default folder for all future save operations. Opening parts and assemblies from the home browser. Very common operation from the TCAI home browser is to open up parts and assemblies from the home browser after browsing through and finding the part of interest via graphically or textually. And what I've done here is pull up open the part, right context menu, simply right click and say open. And then this part will be brought into Inventor. And optionally, I can check it out at the same time if I want to, or it'll ask me to later on if I begin to make edits. And I can look at this particular part and decide actually I wanted to actually bring up the assembly that perhaps this part was referenced to. So instead now I'll browse down inside of the home browser into the RC car engine project. And this time with this assembly of roughly 3-4 dozen parts, I'll bring up the assembly. But I want to highlight a couple of capabilities here. As I bring up the open of the assembly file, this time I'm going to open it rather than just pure. I'm going to open it with a active revision rule from Teamcenter. In this case, I'm going to open it up as the latest working set. So I can open up under any revision rules that are active inside of Teamcenter. And also Inventor comes up and asks me for which level of detail that do I want to bring the assembly up, such as standard Inventor functionality. So both Inventor level of detail and Teamcenter revision rules opens are supported. So what we see here is the small RC car engine. Again, roughly a couple of dozen parts. Very simple way to open an exact, precise, imprecise, or any revision rule. TCAI search. Within the home browser, there's a sophisticated search menu, and as we saw earlier, we can do a quick search of item IDs, but in this case, I'm going to choose actually to build my own search. I can choose one of the existing system-level searches to start from if I want, or use it as my search, but in this case, we're going to build a custom search. I'm going to make my search such that I can fill in the description and the type, and I'm going to name that search. I'm going to hit Save button and name that search Find by Description and Item Type, but I'm going to add to it the qualifier owned by me so that I'll know that this is my own search, looking for items or descriptions of items that are always owned by me with those two fields already set. So once I save that search, from now forward I can now just call on that search anytime I want. And in this particular example, I'm going to look for all items inside of my Teamcenter environment that have the word crankshaft somewhere inside of their description. And in this particular case, I'm going to limit my searches to items only. And when I execute the search, I'll find 3 items fulfill my search criteria, with actually 2 of them checked out to me already. TCAI File Status Browser. In addition to the home browser, TCAI interface also provides a different view of a particular assembly data. Rather than being item focused, an interface, a browser is provided here that's being called up that is file based for the individual parts that are in the assembly. This has the advantage of the more familiar way that many people who are using Inventor are familiar with, in that since it's a file-based system looking at the individual part files. Again, all of the standard data is available there, and in fact, if you move your cursor through, and you can see as I've highlighted here, as you cycle your cursor up and down the part tree, you'll see the metadata from Teamcenter is available in the tip window, and in particular I'm focusing here on a part that's out of date, both an icon on the left and the tooltip is showing me on the right. So rather than doing an immediate get the latest version, I'm going to take a little diversion here, and I'm going to show some new functionality called the composed of, where referenced, and where used. Once we invoke this, we get a nice graphical interface now of this particular part that shows me what's this part composed of that I've actually chosen that's out of date. And I'll choose one of the parts here, and down below I see a graphical view of the bell housing in this particular circumstance. And now I want to know where this part is referenced, right? Where is it referenced in the subassembly? And it's referenced actually in the full RC engine. And then where is it actually used? And in this particular case, I'm going to actually further restrict that by using a BOM revision rule of precise only. And now I can choose and see that the particular version that I've saved is only on that particular version of the gear. So now that I've seen the impact of where that part is, I'm just going to simply say get the latest version. It comes up with a screen. I OK it. And the newest version of the part is automatically loaded into my Inventor session, and I can move forward. And indeed, I can look at it here and verify that it no longer reports itself out of date. And now that I'm done looking at the assembly in the file status or file mode, I'm simply going to go back to my model tree and then recompress my browser down to give myself more window to edit the geometry in. Creating a part and drawing and saving it to Teamcenter. I want to now demonstrate how a user would create a part and a drawing from scratch inside of an open Inventor session and then save both of those into the same item ID as different data sets in Inventor using into Teamcenter using TCAI. So the first process I'll go through here is to create a part from scratch, and it'll be a rather simple part. And as a normal Inventor process starts, I'll be opened into the 2D sketch mode. I'll sketch a simple rectangle, extrude it, and then cut a slot out. Now that I have the base part done, we'll go into the next functionality of Inventor, and that's create the drawing for that part based upon that geometry of that part. So I'll create a new drawing here. And after dropping the base views, add a dimension. And now we come back into TCAI and hit the Save Create button. Brings up the Save Create dialog. This dialog will tell me these parts aren't yet ready to save because I haven't assigned item IDs and revisions. I auto-assign using TCAI, which will choose based on naming rules in TCAI the next available item IDs, next available revisions, which follow the naming rules of Teamcenter. My items are now ready to be saved. I added an optional description in this case. And now I hit Save button after I validate again if necessary. Hit Save button, and now these will be saved into Teamcenter into my default folder. In this case, it was left as a tie rod project, I believe. And I can see that by the bold on the home browser. And I can see underneath this particular item ID two data sets, one of which is the block and the other one is the drawing. Create and save an assembly into TCAI. Similar to the previous demonstration, we're now going to create an assembly rather than just a part inside of TCAI. And we're going to actually place the parts from TCAI home browser rather than bringing them in from the file system to show the capability to create an assembly of parts that are actually inside of Teamcenter. So first thing we'll do is bring in a base part. We've created a blank assembly file now, and now we're going to begin to place parts. The first thing we're going to create is a simple base plate to put some other parts on. So I'm going to use the home browser search and browse capabilities, find a plate that I like, and place it from TCAI. And you can see it there in the background. Now what we're going to do is search through and find some parts. I'm going to place this same part twice to make a very simple assembly. Both times placed from TCAI. And now we'll tuck the home browser out of our way for a minute and do some simple constraint placement. I'm going to place these two cylinders on this base by just doing a face-to-face constraint twice. And then I'm going to move them out to approximate, perhaps that they'd be on a diameter. Obviously this isn't a fully constrained assembly, but it'll do for the demonstration. So we've created a small assembly of three simple parts here. And now what we're going to do is go and save that inside of TCAI. We'll use the same save create we've seen before. And in this case now it's looking at the parts we've used. And now it notices that the two cylinder parts we created were already there, the circle base and the cylinder part, but the assembly itself has to be saved, so we're going to assign it like before. Have Teamcenter create the item ID for us based on the next available and the next revision based on naming rules. We're going to add an optional description here and save it now into Teamcenter. I can also scan to see what other particular metadata I have, and if I want to change that, hit save here, and now we'll pop up the home browser again. Once the save completes, now we'll take a look down in our project and we'll see our new item ID, which is our assembly as we've created. Very simple, straightforward. Cloning and assembly using TCAI. Starting with the assembly from the previous demonstration, we're going to clone this assembly and make a copy for experimentation purposes. So I hit Save Create tab again, only this time now I'm going to go down to the Advanced tab that opens up additional choices for me to make during the clone operation. I can choose from referencing existing items, creating brand new items. I can reference parts or create copies of parts, change the BOM revision rule. In this case, I'm just going to choose simply to add a suffix to all of my item IDs as _MK12 and then ask it to create a clone based upon those choices that I've made. If we look up now in the Save dialog box, we'll see now that a new set of item IDs has been created for us, referencing the original parts. And once we hit Save, those parts are created. And we can go back to the TCAI browser and we can see them in place. TCAI bulk loader. In order to allow files that have never been into Teamcenter but are on the file system to be brought into Teamcenter, TCAI provides a bulk load capability that is driven by a dialog box. And as I've invoked it here, the first thing I need to do is find a folder on the file system somewhere of Inventor parts, assemblies, and drawings I want to bring in. So the first thing I said is, where's the root directory? And then I'm going to ask it to go find the Inventor files, and I can ask it to search for parts, drawings, assemblies, or any combination thereof. Next, what I do is set the folder that I want these parts to go into. In this case, I'm going to choose my normal default folder. Next step I'm going to do is I'm going to check to see if these parts are already inside of Teamcenter so I don't create any duplication problems. And I notice that all of these files are not in Inventor yet, so now, or rather Teamcenter, now I'm going to go in and assign them new item IDs and item revisions based upon the normal Teamcenter rules, and you can see those are all assigned now. And now I'm going to choose one of them in particular, and in this example I'm going to override the revision of this particular part, so that I have a revision B on that particular part and the rest of the items remain at revision A. Now I simply hit the Load in the Teamcenter button, and every one of these individual parts gets loaded into the destination folder I'd chosen. And if we open up the home browser to that particular part and scan through these parts, every part we loaded was there. And in this particular example, I find a angled holder I want, so I'm going to open it inside of Teamcenter right after I've imported it. So now I've taken a file system part, and now it's inside of Teamcenter, and I've opened it up and have a managed part, all with just a couple of steps.